Jeremy could not join us. I'll do that again. Welcome, everyone. We're here for another wonderful Advocacy Day. Today's Advocacy Day is about advocacy in protections, no new institution. And so
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Amanda, but Linda's been kicked out of the meeting and I have not yet been assigned as an interpreter. And so we're not able to interpret at this moment.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. I will, we will pause for now until that gets resolved. So just hang tight, everyone.
And
so is Amanda back in yet?
Amanda is in the meeting, but Linda is joining again. But neither of us has been assigned as interpreter.
Okay, she was, and so we lost her.
I'm back.
How do I get back to that now?
I believe you have to go to the world icon, Diana, and you'll see an option for assigning interpreter. I don't know what it says exactly, but if you click on that as the host.
Well, it doesn't show it on mine. That's why I'm asking.
This is Bean. Diana, your host.
Correct.
Hello, guys. I'm here.
What do you see when you click on the globe?
I don't have the globe on my thing. It might be because I'm screen sharing. I'm going to stop that for a minute.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
We're just going through some technical difficulties right now. So we're just trying to get those sorted for interpreters. So just hang tight, everyone. Thank you for your patience.
Tenemos unas dificultades con el servicio de interpretación, así que gracias por su paciencia. Si pueden esperar unos momentitos.
Not a problem there. I'm here. Hello, Ivanova. I'm here.
Hi. Hi. All right, just let me know when you're ready and we can get started.
I think we should be good to go now, Ivanova.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Advocacy and Protections Advocacy Day. No new institutions. If you've just joined us, remember we're going to be having Spanish interpretation today. And so make sure to go down to that little globe if you haven't already and pick your preferred language that you would like to use, and it will be interpreted as such for you. So we're really excited for you all to be here. Sadly, Jeremy cannot join us. And so I will be your main MC for the day. And we have a really packed agenda. And today is about advocacy and protection and our civil rights. And so we're really passionate about closing the institutions that a lot of people with IDD have been put in. And this is actually even very personal for me. I was institutionalized the first 5 years of my life. And if I had stayed in that institution, I wouldn't have had much of a life. I would not have been able to get married and have my children and live the life that I wanted to live, or even gain an education. And so it's really important for me as a self-advocate that we don't have people trapped in institutions where they don't get to really live the life that they want to live. And so we're really passionate about making sure that everyone can have a chance to live in their community. And I'm really glad that I get to live in my community today. And so that's why this is a subject I'm very passionate about. So as you see, this is my virtual background, and it has actually two images in it. It has the image of a person drinking coffee, but on this piece of paper, you will see it says "Shut Them Down Coalition." That was actually drawn by my good friend Will Fail, who is also a member of People First. And that is the logo for the new coalition that was started called Shut Them Down. And it's and the goal of the whole coalition is to close the institutions. And so we're really passionate about that. And a lot of the speakers today will be talking about different ways that we've been advocating for that. And the first person I want, and this is a person I really want to honor, I have a lot of respect for, and that is David Lord. David Lord and I have worked on a lot of legislation together, advocating. You know, he was always at the Capitol, and we've done presentations together on this issue and on guardianship. And so he just recently retired, but he's still doing some consulting work. And I just wanted us to take the time to honor him today and all of the hard work that he's done for disability rights and for the self-advocate community. So David, a big thank you to you. And if you have any words you would like to say, you're more than welcome to. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Ivanova, coming from you. And then I also appreciate the recognition from the advocacy community as a whole. It's really means a lot to me. As I think most of you know, I'm retired now. But as is the case with so many people that are retired, I still do stuff. And one of the things I still do advocacy. And I am right now working on a contract and most of what I do in my contract with the Disability Rights Washington is do what I can to support people with disabilities in being in the legislative process and understanding and being part of that. So if you're interested in that kind of work at all, you get a hold of me. I know I'm really connected up with SAIL and People First and the Cross Disability Advocacy Network and other groups. So, but I'm just really so pleased to have this opportunity. And I'm not really sure, did you want me to speak for a bit, Ivanova? Diana had mentioned maybe some do's and don'ts on the legislature. Is that something you have time for now, or how do you want to proceed at this point?
So it looks like you have about like 10 to 14 minutes.
Well, then, of course.
Until 10:15.
Okay.
Ivanova, actually, he was going to start at 10:15.
Oh,
We got him in early. So, David, I know how much you like to talk, so you got some extra time here.
Well, I'll definitely share that with anybody who else who wants to speak, because you are right. That's always one of the things I was always throwing my elbows around to try and get on the agenda to talk to this group back when we were back in that long ago when we all met in person. And the many years. And I just want to say kind of also as kind of an overview thing that I've always appreciated all the support from the ARC and People First. And well, I can't even get started on all the different advocacy groups and all the wonderful things that they have done as we've worked together on legislation. And my focus has been, because I work for DRW, has been on rights issues. And Diana always called me up and set it up so that I got one chance when I could really concentrate on trying to bring those kinds of issues in front of the Advocacy Day group. And so this is kind of familiar to me, is a familiar territory to be having a presentation where we're going to talk a lot about rights bills. And sometimes there's a lot of those and sometimes there aren't so many. Just so you guys all know, there's been some successes over the years, and I won't go through all of them, but just some of the recent ones. Ivanova mentioned guardianship issues. A few years back, worked with many of you to get a bill passed that made it really clear that people with disabilities have the right to associate with whoever they want to. That is to meet or see whoever they want to when they have a guardianship, that can't be just restricted. And that's been a problem, particularly for people who are in facilities. The guardian would say, no, you can't see this person or that person, and the person wants to see them. So that bill was passed a few years back. And by the way, when they changed the guardianship law a few years back, that was added in. That was one of the things that Senator Peterson agreed, you know what, that's a right in Washington state law, and we're going to make sure that that's in the new law, because as some of you may know, we had a big rewrite of the guardianship law a couple years back. So that's an example of an important success that we had. But probably the one that I want to bring out to you right now that's really important because it still has some importance right now is supported decision-making. And that's something I know I've worked a lot with Ivanova on because actually the year that I retired, just before I retired, we passed a big law that created, that made it possible for people in Washington state to do a legally recognized supported decision-making agreement as an alternative to guardianship. So a person who has some need for assistance with decision-making can get that to happen. So that's something that's happened in the recent past and that has just been passed. And I think we may see legislation on that, we may not, but we're definitely going to see more activity to try and make it possible for as many people as possible to look to an alternative to guardianship instead of a guardianship, and to make that available so that people know about it. So that's kind of a start on some of the things that have happened in the recent past about rights. And now I don't know which bills exactly, because I'm not as connected as I was because I'm retired. You all are most interested in, but I'd be happy to respond on that. I know there's one bill in particular I'm a little bit concerned with. We always give our bill numbers whenever we talk about bills at Advocacy Day. And that bill is SB 5185. And it passed last week, it passed the Senate. And it's in the House, but it doesn't have a hearing yet. And that bill is an act relating to informed consent for healthcare. And informed consent is a way that one of the things that when you have a medical issue is you can give, the doctor will want you to understand what's happening and to give what they call informed consent. So you're consenting and you really understand what you're doing. Well, that bill 5185, it makes a presumption that a person who has a guardianship doesn't have the ability to make healthcare decisions. Now, this may be uncontroversial in some regard that people don't have that capacity, because with a healthcare guardianship, generally what happens is somebody else is responsible for making your healthcare decisions. That said, it's still true that they're supposed to listen to what you want and what you say about the decision, whether you're the decision maker formally or not. The guardian is supposed to do that. That language isn't in this bill. And while it's part of the law, I'm worried that if they change this law like this, people are going to read it and not understand that. So I'm hopeful that we can get this bill to make that clear. So I'm going to be looking at that in the future. It hasn't got a hearing yet in the House. I brought this up in the Senate, or actually DRW brought it up in the Senate, not me. And I'm hoping that will be something that people will pay attention to. So that's an example of the kind of bills that we work on. And there's an example of one that I know about. Now, before I go into any further, I just wonder, are there any questions or comments? So I've talked now for like 10 minutes. And I'd like to make this interactive. So anything that people wants to bring up about a rights-related bill, or a question they have about what I've said, or a comment they want to make.
So, what I see in the chat, David, is Ben Moore says, hello everyone, community supports over institutionalization. Thank you, Ben. Next is Son Latham. Thank you, David, for all your years of service. But yes, don't go away. We still need you. That's definitely true. And so one thing I'd like to see, I'm interested in, is how many people here have experienced being under guardianship, or any of the other rights issues we're speaking of today have been institutionalized or been under guardianship, or any of that, you can just like respond in the chat or raise your hand or something like that.
I have a quick comment. I would know this is Eric.
Go
And
ahead.
while people are chatting in the box, whatever, I just want to say to David Lord, you are such a great advocate and a great friend to me and to so many. To thank you for working with me for many years and continue on and being yourself. Thank you.
I want to respond, Eric. I thank you so much. I am so grateful for your friendship. And I think we all ought to be grateful for the wonderful advocacy you've done and the way that you have been one of the leaders of the self-advocacy movement. And thank you for that. And thank you for those kind words.
You bet. That means a lot coming from you because you've been, well, around a really long time in the field. So
You know, it's funny you say that, because one of the things, as long as we're strolling down memory lane, one of the things that that I need to point out is that I know most of the people that are part of the self-advocacy movement, kind of from, because most of them are younger than I am. I know them from when they were young, I remember when Ivanova went to her first hearing and she was in unlike now. And I remember, Eric, when you came to Washington State, I remember, you know, first getting connected with you with people first. And Kyle, I even remember you way back when, I don't even know if you, back when people first getting started in Washington State back in the 80s. So I know.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember if I ever worked with you, because when it used to be the old protection and advocacy system, I was
Yep.
that in the 80s.
That's right. Katie Dolan and all those folks. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Way back when. So anyway, so I want to say that and thank you for that. Is there
So there's still more questions in the chat, David. Phil Bradford asks, would the informed consent advocacy apply to people without diagnosed disabilities also in the Senate bill you referred?
And that's a great question. The specific concern that I have is about a change in that, and the answer is the informed consent law that we have currently does apply to people who don't have guardianships. It's really about making sure that where a person is not able to give informed consent, that they have, you know, that there's a mechanism by which somebody can provide consent for them, whether that's a guardian or somebody else. So that's true. That said, the change that's being made really is specifically about guardianship, and it specifically affects people who have a guardian. So that's where my concern is that now, that said, it would be great to have a statement. What I'm proposing is that there'll be something in this new bill that would make it really clear that that you're supposed to pay attention to what that person wants when you make a decision about their health care. To be conferring with them, and that needs to be given. And that is, like I say, that's the law, but it's just, it needs to be really clear in the part of the law where people are going to look when they make decisions about healthcare. And this is where they'll look. So elsewhere in the law, that's pretty clear, I think, but it's not right here. So that's why I'm just wanting to make sure that happened. So thank you, Phil, for that question. That's a good question. By the way, while we're talking about informed consent, there's another place where a whole different kind of informed consent comes up. And some of you I know are aware of this, and that's HB 1411. And that's a bill about whether, and it's about qualification. Or actually, there's people who have had felony convictions have been disqualified from being caregivers. And this is a bill that would make some changes so that individuals could hire somebody as a caregiver who had a felony conviction. And there's been a fair amount of controversy about how that bill's written. And that's something I think actually at noon today, as I recollect, there's a town hall with the prime sponsor, Tara Simmons, on that. And somebody else may have some more information about that, but I think there's a town hall coming up, so there'll be an opportunity to hear more about that. But that's a whole different kind of informed consent, although it's really about making sure that people with disabilities understand what's happening if there is if they have a caregiver who has a prior record of a felony.
And that town hall is tomorrow, David.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Sorry.
It's on the agenda. So if people want
good.
information on it, they can get the agenda off of our website, and the link is on the agenda.
Okay,
Good.
so
Thanks
there's
for stopping me before I go too far into that, because that's an interesting,
Yeah.
but it's really.
so there's a couple more questions for you, David, in the chat.
Mhm.
Alex Mutler asked, what do you think new advocates should know if just out of school? And then Philip Bradford responded to your answer. Thank you. I would be proud to paralegal help until you finally quit for real.
Oh,
Eric Warwick, she said, who is a good ally and or decision maker in the House to talk about this issue that it can get amended properly? And and then the last somebody just announced that they're here. I'm here, Justin Martin. Hi, Justine. David, and Marcy sent you a very kind comment. David, I have always admired your beautiful heart and your gentle soul. Many years ago, you took me aside to comfort me at the difficult meetings. Your humanity that day showed you understand the big picture that we are all in this together and we need to take care of each other. Thank you so much, Marcy Arthur. So that's all that's in the chat.
great. Thank you. Well, I'll respond now. Thank you, Marcy, for that. And by the way, one of the things that Diana suggested is maybe I could do some do's or don'ts. And actually, my primary do for people is to remember that we are all in this together, and that we are, we're all essentially on, the same. I know that sometimes within our advocacy movement, we have disagreements, and that's healthy, and that's one of the things that happens. But I think that we are all headed in a common direction, and that it's important that we remember that, and that we that when we're talking to each other, that we remember that, and that we maintain our respect, and that we're thoughtful of each other in doing that. And I think that's so. Thank you for saying that, because that's kind of cued me on my really what my first do and don't was. That's my first do for advocates. And I'll have just a couple more of those. I think I've got a couple more minutes, I think. But let's see. And there was another, I think there was a question. Oh, there was a thought about who would be a good person in the around the issue that I had brought up.
Somebody in the House.
Yeah, in the House. And actually, that would be somebody on the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee. And I don't know who that person is at this point, but that would be the right place to go. If you're going to try and get something, and this is probably an important thing for advocates to always be thinking about. This was one of my next do's, and that is when you have a point of view that you put out to a legislator or anybody for that matter, it's important to be able to say not just I'm against this or I don't want this, but to say what it is that you want. And so when you have a criticism like I just had of that bill, which was that, gee, I think that people are going to overreach on this, and guardians aren't going to understand that they need to pay attention to what people want. I need to be thinking about what it is that I would suggest. And so the idea that coming up with language for that, if you can, and if you can't, then coming up with a pretty good approximation of what it is you want to have different. In this case, I would say that what I would want would be a statement that made it really clear that was something that needed to happen, that the guardian or anybody who's giving informed consent needs to pay attention to the choices and preferences of the individual with the disability and to make inquiries about that. So, that's something that I can bring forward and talk to legislators about, but that's always something to do. That's an important do is that it isn't enough just to say what's wrong. You need to say what it is that you think is right. So that's good. And I think I think this group, and I want to say just for a moment, because it's been so important to me over the years, I'm so pleased that you are focusing in on the issue of institutions this year. Thank you for doing that. I think that is a wonderful thing for this community to do, to get together. It's such a difficult issue, and I think that it's being done responsibly, where we're not just saying we don't like institutions, we're saying what we want in the community. And there's legislation around that, and there's certainly, we'll have opportunities to bring that out. And I'm hoping that many of you, I know that many of you will be bringing that to the attention of legislators. But that's something that I think is really cool. So I'm glad that that's happening, and I think that's something that will be positive. So I would say, as far as do's and don'ts, because I think I need to wrap up here. We have a top 10 list that Pam Crone, who many of you know is a very an astute lobbyist that I have worked with in the past, and that Disability Rights Washington still works with. And she's come up with a top 10, and you can get a hold of me or Daria if you want to get that list. But, you know, it's things like make sure that you build bridges, don't burn them. Make sure that you pay attention with the legislative assistant, that, you know, you contact them. And I think that's something that most of you know. You've heard about that from Diana and Ivanova and others. Be sure you'll talk to the LA. But an important one that is also brought up, and this will be my closing suggestion, is make sure that that all the business that you do is out in the public. Don't follow the legislator to the bathroom. You may really want to talk to them, but don't bother them when they're in there. And I know that maybe that seems obvious to you, but I've seen people try to talk to the legislator about whatever bill they want while they're in the bathroom. So if they bring it up, okay, but otherwise leave them alone when they're in the bathroom. I think that's something we probably all could appreciate. So anyway, with that as my final remark.
Well, David,
anything else you need from me?
David, this is Diana. You got like 3 minutes left.
Oh,
one of the
okay.
things I would like you to hit on was the institution that you worked so hard on getting closed, and how you did that, Francis Haddon Morgan Center.
Oh, well, you know what? I wasn't really the leader on the work on Francis Haddon Morgan closure. I wish I could say I was, but I wasn't. No, that did not happen as part of my advocacy, Diana. So I can't really do that because that wasn't me. But I'm sure glad that, you know, that it happened and that moved ahead. And some of you may recall that there was a small institution, Francis Haddon Morgan, that was closed, I don't remember, 15 years ago, something like that. And it was primarily associated with people, well, actually, I think almost all of the people that lived in that facility had autism. It was small as facilities go. I think there was like 60 or 70 people there, as I reckon, less than 100, I think. And but it was closed some years ago, and I can't, you know, how that worked. It wasn't me that made that happen. So I was there as part of a group, but I don't know what the magic was, the magic elixir or whatever, or the magic formula that got that to be closed. One thing I think we have going on right now, though, that's interesting is not only is there the work around Rainier, but Furcrest is actually a place with the Furcrest Institution where there's actually an opportunity to stop rebuilding an institution and to move in the other direction, and to make a choice, for the legislature to make a choice to go a different direction. And I think that's something that I really hope this group will continue to work on. So Diana, I'm sorry, don't have anything there for you.
It's okay. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Okay. All right.
And people are sending you a lot of awesome comments in the chat.
Okay. Thanks.
So if you want to look at those, you're more than welcome to. And also there's a link to the State House Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee, if anyone wants to look at that. So yeah, so now.
And the bill that I'm speaking of has not got a hearing yet, just so you know. It doesn't have a hearing yet. So anyway, go ahead.
So let's thank David and then move on to our next presenters, Noah Sadell and Tim Mchugh. Take it away, Noah and Tim. And they're going to be talking about the DD Ombuds.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Noah Sadell, and I'm with the Office of Developmental Disability Ombuds. And I'm going to give a quick little overview about the DD Ombuds and how it came into existence and what work we do. So the DD Ombuds Office was created in 2016 through the bill that was passed, Senate Bill 6564. So this bill was a long time in the making. Advocates have been working to create a DD Ombuds office for more than 20 years before this bill passed. And it happened in 2016 because there was a case of a woman who was being abused and neglected where she lived. So this woman was living with in a home with family members, and unfortunately, one of the persons who was her individual provider was also abusing her. It was a case where, you know, there were locks in the bedroom, but from the outside of the bedroom, she had marks on her body, and she actually became pregnant, but did not know and consent to how she became pregnant. And so this case got attention in the media, and people started talking about how people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are at a higher percentage to be abused and neglected in their life than people without intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what happened is the legislators brought together advocates, parents, self-advocates, DDA workers, and community members together to discuss abuse and neglect. And they had a meeting, and people testified about how this is prevalent in our community, unfortunately. And then Senator O'Ban was the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 6564. And what this bill did was it aimed to stop abuse and neglect towards people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it did it by doing two things. It created enhanced case managers for DDA. So enhanced case managers are for people who are at high risk of isolation. They have a case manager that has a less of a caseload and also visits the person more often. A typical case manager might visit a person once a year, but if you're on the enhanced case manager ratio, you get a visit every quarter. And it also created the Office of Developmental Disability Ombuds. And what an ombuds is a person who collects and investigates complaints. And the complaints can be systemic, or the complaints can be about an individual problem that the person is having. And an ombuds helps that individual have their complaint be addressed by the agency and also reports their concerns to the government.
So, good? Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
So what our office does, we have powers and duties that are given to us by the legislator. We investigate complaints. So if somebody
Thank you.
is experiencing abuse or neglect or not receiving the services that they should be receiving from the state, we can start a complaint and help them resolve their issues. We work at the lowest level possible with the individual or their family to try to get the solution to happen. We inform people about their rights and responsibilities, and we also go out and do monitoring visits. So we visit people where they live. It can be requested by an individual or by a family member. We take complaints from anybody. We get complaints from people with intellectual developmental disabilities, complaints from parents, cousins, friends. We even get complaints from DDA case managers sometimes to help them in their advocacy. So that is the overall what the DD Ombuds does. Our website is www.ddombuds.org, and from there you can make a complaint. We have some videos that explains what we do, and some videos around self-advocacy. And we have a blog that Tim Mchugh constantly is updating with information and resources. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to him to talk about the work he does for the DD Ombuds.
Yeah, hey everyone. So my name is Tim Mchugh. Most people here, I think, know me. So I am self-advocacy educator at the DD Ombuds office. And so what that means is that I typically go around, well, before the pandemic, I would, physically travel to places and give presentations about topics relating to self-advocacy. So talking to folks with disabilities about issues relating to abuse and neglect, about how to, make choices in their lives, and stuff like that, how to tell people what they want, and of course, talking about our office and how our office can help them to advocate for the things that they need with regards to their services and that type of thing. So we've done a couple of really cool projects over the last couple of years, right? So Noah and I had the opportunity to travel to the SABE conference last year, I think, and we were able to give a big presentation there about abuse and neglect. That was, I thought was really valuable for the folks there at the national level. And then we also supported a advocate in the community named Sredi Jaro to have a fellowship with SARTAC, and that was really exciting. And so she worked with us to, she created some really great material around actually legislating how to advocate to the Washington State Legislature using video testimony, like with your taking video, like with your smartphone and that type of thing. And that was really, really cool. And that came out really good, I think. So, so we're always going around giving presentations and stuff like that. Really soon here, actually, we're going to be giving a presentation to the parent-to-parent group in Clallam County, right? So it's not just necessarily folks with disabilities, but also other folks involved with the lives of individuals. So parents, service providers, other individuals. I also give presentations to those folks pretty regularly. And so, we're always working on these different projects. And so one of them is that we have made these different, we've made some advocacy videos with advocates in the community. And so this last year, we had the opportunity to put together 2 new videos that we have on our website that Noah mentioned, and talking about those individuals wrote the scripts for their videos, and they really decided what was going to be in them as far as advocating and talking about their experience with their services and advocating for what they wanted in their lives. And so we've started working on trying to put those types of things together. And that's been really cool, So, and then finally, of course, we have our emerging leaders. So we have just a meeting that we've started working on, we've been doing it for the last couple of years now, but providing folks with some, kind of like one-on-one assistance with legislative advocacy and that type of thing. And we have our meetings on Thursdays. Those meetings are on Thursdays from 1 to 2 on the People First Zoom channel. Yeah. And so that just about covers it, I think. Noah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that's great. And I put our website in the chat, and there you can find the videos, the blog, other resources, and also you can make a complaint there, or you can also make a complaint by giving us a phone call, and I'll also put our phone number in the chat. And again, we take complaints from anybody who is connected with a person with a developmental disability who would need assistance.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for listening to our little spiel about our office and the work that we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your epic work, Noah and Tim. And also Noah posted in the chat the website for the DD Ombuds. So if anyone wants to watch the videos, they've made some really cool videos. And all naked complaint, all like assistance from the Ombuds. And also he just posted the phone number as well. So if you need that information, it's right there for you in the chat. Thank you both. Now, we're going to go on to our next presenter, Ayan Elmi, and she is a parent. Take it away.
Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my phone is weird, so it's like blinking, so I wasn't sure. My name is Ayan Elmi, and I just wanted to say to Diana and Hodan, who's on the line, for inviting me today. I have a 11-year-old who's about to be 12 in April, and he has autism. And for the past, honestly, 10 years, I've been fighting for his right, whether it's receiving services at school, getting to the right school, because he got switched almost 4 times because they didn't have the right classes for him, or the class was too small, and funding reason. And on top of that, it took us 5 years for him to get diagnosed, because either it was being blamed on language, because my family speaks multiple languages, or cultural issues. And then at times I was told that I wasn't speaking to him or reading to him enough in English, basically, which I found was very hurtful and really biased, to be honest with you. And also when it came to getting him services, I had to pay from my own pocket to take taxis from here. I live in South Seattle to Bellevue, sometimes Kirkland, because there's not enough services here right now. Like that time 10 years ago, that was accepting, whether it was behavioral services and then whether it was just the regular classes that he needed. I had to pay sometimes $60, $70 a day just to take taxis back and forth because I didn't drive. And on top of that, I had 2 other little kids and I had to drag them. Sometimes they had to miss school because of that. And on top of that, I feel like the school, when he got into it, they were saying that because it took so long for him to get diagnosed. I remember there was a man that retired from Seattle Children's, and I guess he was some sort of expert. And he met with me and honestly didn't even talk to me about like what I saw in my son, because I feel like the parent is the first teacher. And he didn't talk to me about that. He just looked at my son, who was basically rocking himself back and forth and making kind of a lot of fuss because he didn't like closed confined places. He felt very nervous about it. And he was nonverbal at that time. He didn't speak until he was 7 years old. And right away, without even looking at his medical chart, he wanted to medicate him just to keep him quiet. He just wanted to medicate him. He was like, oh, no. His behavior is too much. If he goes to school like this, he will hurt the teachers. So he just saw my son as like a monster. He didn't even see him as a human being, to be honest with you. He just looked at him and that was it. Just looking at him. And I feel like that's someone who's an expert with individuals with disability. So I right away, before I used to listen to doctors, and that's the day I decided, you know what? No, today I'm going to be an advocate for my son. I said, nope, you're not medicating my child. I need you to give me other services or things that you could do for him. And honestly, I got into a real argument with him. In my culture, that's not something that we do. We respect authority. That's the way I grew up. But that day, I was really in a place that I saw red as a parent, I guess, but mama bear. I saw red. I was like, no way, there's no way you're going to speak to my child this way. There's no way you're going to do this to my child. So the biggest issue I've noticed for the last 10 years, helping parents and also myself navigating the system, is that it's very hard for individuals in Washington to receive service. I was actually reading an article yesterday before I came to this meeting from someone that I believe she used to be the executive director for ARC of Washington. And she said that a lot of times what she noticed is that the services that other states, because I moved from Oregon when I was little, almost like about 20 years ago, I lived in Oregon. And the service that my brother, who also has disability, they receive there, and other states that other people I spoke in different states is very different. So the biggest issue is the system. The system, the way it's made in Washington, a lot of families are moving out because they're not getting their children the service they need. Because the average DDA case manager, honestly, from what I remembered, has 75 cases. One person juggling that much, it's very hard for me sometimes to get hold of my son's case manager. If I see services that he needs or things that I need to talk to her, it takes a long time for her to get back to me because she's a human being. She's one person, 75 people. That's a lot of families. That sometimes some families are in dire needs more than the others. So she has to prioritize. And I feel like that's not fair to certain children. And sometimes some families don't even get services like myself. It took us 7 years. And by the time he gets diagnosed, he missed so much that right now I had to become TA. I had to become the teacher. And right now with the pandemic being at home, isolated, he had almost 76 hours of his regular hours that he was receiving. And it got cut 70% basically because of the budget cuts. And I speak the language. What do you think of families that don't speak the language? I had to fight for him. And that took me a long time to even learn the system. And I see moms in our community, hold on, can attest to that. They are crying to us. They're calling us. Even earlier before this meeting, there was a father that called me and hold on, crying because his wife is in the hospital and he has 6 kids, almost 5 kids, 6 kids, yes, but 5 of them have disabilities. And he doesn't know the language very well. When he tries to do one paper, there's another one coming in different language. They're saying that you need this, you need that. And then I just feel like we really need to look at all the kids that are being left behind, all the children, all the adults with disabilities that either, even those that speak the language are having a hard time. So I think, to me, in my opinion, we have to look within ourselves as advocates and also individuals that have space of power to say, listen, there's a big barrier here of individuals of color, people that are immigrants, and individuals that are adults that cannot speak for themselves, that have other people speaking for them. And honestly, if it wasn't for Hodan, who's on the line, and other moms that were there for me, and being a single mom, there were times I used to cry just by myself because I felt like I failed my son because I didn't know what to do. Everywhere you're told, no, he doesn't need it. No, this is that. So what I would really love is that we say we're giving individuals rights, but a lot of times people with disabilities are not looked at humans, to be honest with you. They're not speak to, they're looked down on. My son is a smart human being. He's the most gentle person I've ever met. He teaches me sympathy. He teaches me how to be empathetic to others. And he teaches me how to look at life to the most simple and innocent way ever. And I feel like we don't do that. We look at them as a case. We look at them as a funding. Oh, we don't have enough funding. We don't look at them as, and I think we need to change that, to be honest with you, before we can ever think that we're gonna move forward. And I wanted to say thank you so much, and thank you to Hodan and Diana for inviting me to this.
Thank you, Ayan. It's really important that we hear your stories and your experiences. And I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. Our system is, you're right about our system. It has a lot of challenges. And you think that you are a very great advocate fighting for your son. And just some comments for you that I will read to you. I'm very sorry about your situation. I'm sorry to hear that. Doctors need to be better. Thank you for sharing. Diane Stadden says, thank you for sharing these stories. We don't see them, but we need to speak up for everyone. Thank you, Ian. I'm thankful for your strong advocacy and voice. And thank you for sharing your story. It's very important. So I'm really glad you were here today to share that. And I hope that we can work together to make this system better for everyone. And now our next presenter is from the Washington State Parent Coalition, Sandy Groberg. Take it away, Sandy.
Thanks, Ivanova. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sandy Gruberg, and I am the program coordinator for Pierce County Coalition for Developmental Disabilities and the co-coordinator for the Washington State Parent Coalition. And this is, who are you? This is my daughter, Marina. Marina lives with us in our family home and receives services from the Developmental Disabilities Administration, and I am her paid caregiver. I would like to talk this morning about choice. Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have the right to receive supports that facilitate choice. To provide these supports, we must build a better community service structure and a guaranteed safety net that addresses all stages and phases of life. Over 80% of individuals with IDD live with their parents or other family members. This is the primary model of care that DDA relies on, yet does not fully fund. If we honestly value choice and a person's ability to avoid institutionalization and participate fully in their community, we must plan for, build, and fully fund supports that are at least equal to, and ideally better than, the supports one is entitled to in an institutional setting, the supports that our loved ones waived in order to live at home. On behalf of families across Washington State, I'm advocating today for a plan that honors person-centered approach in the residential setting of choice. This plan includes DDA waiver supports for all eligible individuals, no more wait list, access to high-quality personal care providers, behavioral support, and community engagement providers in a variety of creative settings. Waiver additions to support affordable, active, and meaningful day programs and day health beyond the limited respite hours received. Expanded respite with a robust network of trained providers, including providers with specialized behavioral support skills. The ability to socialize and learn with groups of disabled and non-disabled peers without sacrificing needed paid supports. Personal care hours that include supervision when required for physical safety. Access to high quality mental health support for both individuals and their family members. And transition planning and support for aging families when they can no longer provide care. This includes benefits planning and transition to core waivers to fund supported living, SOLAs, and other affordable residential options outside the family home. Families do not want their loved ones to live in an institution. We know that with the right supports, people with IDD can live, work, and play in their own communities, urban and rural. We support choice, and we want a plan. We're advocating for an inclusive, supportive, and safe community, but we're not there yet. We must prioritize developing and funding programs, structures, and person-centered supports and solutions to replace our only IDD residential entitlement, institutionalization. So thank you. Thank you for letting me share today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. That's very vital information. And there's some people in the chat says thank you for sharing your story. Great vision. Martha said, great vision, Sandy. Is there anyone to get a written version of your presentation? So if you have a written version, maybe you could email that or send that out in the chat.
Would you like me to send that to you, Ivanova?
I don't have
that. Sandy, this is Diana. Why don't you send it to me and I'll get it posted on the website.
Thank you, Diana.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. Thank you again for telling your story and having your daughter there with you as well. Really good to see you. They actually both attended our sale meeting yesterday, and it was really awesome having them there. All right, so now we're going to have our next presenter, who is a good colleague and advocate friend of mine, Kyle Matheson. Take it away, Kyle.
Thanks you very much, Mr. Ivan Smith. My name is Kyle Matheson. I am going to be talking to you more about how to be independent, how to be a guardian, possible be a guardian for a friend that if need be to for medical decisions, etc. One of the biggest things that me personally, I'm not lived in a state institution, but I visited one, and the only thing, I mean, I saw the way the buildings are. And that's one of the things that is those buildings that has to be taken down. But also, I had a good dear friend who just passed away over a month ago, a couple months ago, excuse me, named Tony Hall. He's been a great advocate. He did live in an institution called Western State for probably about 12 to 15 years. He also, but then after when he got out, he went to a great group through called Ambitions of Supported Living. He went through called and at the end of January. But one of the things what he does is after he got out in touch with his family, he came into another family, his People First family. He did a great job in knowing people. He thanked people. He written to a lot of people to saying, hey, thank you for taking that time. And he had a great smile. One of his big things I noticed, he loves to chew on a toothpick. And so that's his life. My life, it's more of, I didn't go, even though was raised up, most of the time I was living independently, and I do have a limited guardian. As my brother. Once my parents went one time, but now it's went toward my brother. And that just means that I can still do everything on my own, but with some guardians through my family. But you know, like a lot of people do not have family members that they can turn to, or they call themselves self-guardians. And that's where one of the things I did find out, also my friend Eric found out, that if something that has to do with medical and they need that help to speak up for their medical rights and etc., we can easily sign up on a deal that says this is a temporary, but it's help make that medical decision if on a life or death situation, to make sure that, hey, what would be the best and what would be his wishes, person's wishes, or would be for that person to strive. And unfortunately, even though we had to make that hard decision to let him go, he wanted it that way. He didn't want to suffer. He didn't want to make sure that, but the lessons learned that is more of how do we stick up for people that doesn't have that much of a voice, but they can still say, hey, how would they be able to turn to a friend or somebody that knows them quite well, or knows that person quite well, and doing the leadership roles, or they taking care of it so that be what is best. Also, my thing is I live now in a senior high-rise building, because since I'm 61, I am retired since April 2020. But you know what? People don't get rid of me that easy, because I say I'm still involved in the community doing advocacy work. I'm the advisor for King County. I'm a baseball umpire for Little League still, if we ever get another season this year. And I also serve on other community boards as well. And where I say, as I introduce myself, I say, I'm Kyle. I do serve on many other boards or many other hats, as the old saying goes. So thank you very much for letting me have a chance to speak, and if I take any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. You've done a lot of great work here for the self-advocacy movement, and your leadership is important. We can't get rid of you. We need you.
Thank you very much.
All the work you've done. Wonderful presentation. And if there's no other questions, I don't see anything in the chat for you, but if you can also contact Kyle. He's around all the time, so he's a great person to work with.
Thank you.
It is.
All right. So our next presenter is another great advocate who's a member of the a fellow member of the Shut Them Down Coalition, Julie Clark. Take it away, Julie. Looks like we need to get the sound to work.
That's right. Diane, you might have to go back out, and then before you share, you have to make sure the sound's on.
My name is Julie Clark. My name is Julie Clark, and I have cerebral palsy. I'm 53 years old, and I live in Lacey. I was in Western State Hospital for 3 months in 2001. Mchugh is a residential provider, and they got me out of the hospital in September of that year and put me into my apartment with day and evening caregivers. I was in independent living. In independent living, my caregivers clean. I was able to come and go as I pleased. My transportation was using public transportation. Being independent was especially important to me because I could set my schedule. I chose how to run my life. I worked for the Department of Health and Human Services as a secretary for 17 years before I retired in 2018. Work was essential to me because I was involved, contributing to my community. I was an important member of that organization for many years. The United Churches of Olympia is my church. I have been going there for over 25 years. I am an active member of my church. The church is important to me. As I aged, I could not take care of myself. I needed to have 24-hour care. So, Mchugh placed me in a group home that Mchugh runs. I had a roommate who was alone all the time. My roommate would assault the caregivers. Being in the group home was not safe for me. In November 2019, I moved to an apartment in Lacey with Mchugh's help. I get 24-hour care. A nurse comes to check up on me because my hair is high. I have a feeding tube, vest shift compression machine, and higher lift. My caregivers go everywhere I go. It is nice to be living on my own again. I was in and out of the hospital with pneumonia for the last 6 months of 2019. Shelley is a nurse that Mchugh hired. She has taught me how to breathe better. I have not been to the hospital with Shelley's help since January 2020. I am in community inclusion, a part of a supported employment program that allows me to continue to be active in my community now that I am retired. It is still essential for me to be involved in the community. I do a lot of advocacy and volunteer work. When I was in an institution, I could not do what I can do in the community. I am pleased to be in the community to set my schedule and be involved in whatever activities I choose. I have all the freedom that my health will allow, and I am grateful to be an active part of my community. A group of self-advocates was formed known as the Shut Them Down Coalition, and I am a member of this group. This group wants to close all the residential rehabilitation centers, RHC, to allow all of these individuals to be active members of their community. I strongly believe that all disabled people should live in the community and that nobody should live in an RHC. Will you sign a petition to shut them down?
That's great, Julie. Thank you for sharing your story. There's a lot of people that need to hear that.
You betcha, Diane.
Thank you for sharing your story. Does anyone have any questions? Kathy Mahasi says thank you.
I
And-
say Mike says thank you too.
Awesome.
Yes, Julie worked with Craig Cecilia to work on this video. And
awesome.
so the video will be posted on our website too. Julie, I am so impressed with what you put together and what you've accomplished in your life. And, you know, we keep hearing legislators talk about they need to build this new nursing facility because there are people who need nursing services and can't be served in the community. And you just proved them all wrong. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you too, Judy. This is Mike. Raymond, I want to say thank you for doing that.
Good. Thank you so much. And now we will also, Bill Fredford says, much respect, close them down. Son Latham says, thank you, Julie, for sharing your story. Thank you, Julie. Pam says, I've known Julie for years. She is an amazing person. Thank you for sharing. David Lord, wonderful job, Julie. You are a great advocate. And I 100% agree with that. You are an amazing advocate. Now we are going to hear from Daria and Daria Ferber and Beth Leonard. Take it away.
Daria, I don't see Beth on. Is she here?
Yeah, Beth is not going to make it today, unfortunately. She's dealing with a separate urgent matter, but she sends her best and is sorry that she can't make it. So unfortunately, you all are just stuck with me today. So I'll go ahead and get started, folks. It's nice to see everyone. For those I don't know, I'm Daria Faravar. I'm the Public Policy Director at Disability Rights Washington, attempting to fill the giant shoes that David Lord has left. Thank goodness David is still close by to answer all of my burning questions and to advocate with us in this community. So I also want to join in also in the round of thank you to Julie. I really appreciate you sharing your story, Julie. And that's exactly right. There are folks currently in the community who are receiving nursing level care. And there is this kind of idea that some folks and some legislators have that, you know, folks with a significant need can't be served in the community, and that is just plain wrong. We know that everyone can be served in the community, but if we only fund institutions and we meagerly fund community services, it's no wonder that folks are getting stuck in these institutions. It's not a true choice. If we are investing millions and millions of dollars into one piece of the system and not funding the other system, we're not giving folks a real meaningful choice at where they want to live and what they want to do. So I am going to talk today about two institutions that were proposed in the governor's budget this year. And hopefully talk a little bit about the timeline and what we can do to stop these things, because we do not need two new institutions in Washington state. We need to shut them down, as you all already said so eloquently.
Shut them down.
Yes. So I think I'll start with the first one that folks are probably familiar with, and that is the nursing home, segregated nursing home, I should say, proposed for the grounds of Fircrest. Now, this nursing home was proposed through the Ruckles House Work Group. For folks who don't know, the Ruckles House Work Group got together about, was it a year or so ago, to come up with recommendations on the future of the of DD services and the institutions. However, this work group did not meaningfully engage self-advocates and folks with disabilities themselves. And so the recommendations they came up with didn't accurately represent what folks with that direct lived experience actually want to see happen for the future of their services and their community. So one of those recommendations included the building of a roughly $120 million segregated nursing home on the grounds of Fircrest, a place where there have been years and years of trauma for the disability community, for folks with developmental disabilities. Now, last year we came together and we fought that nursing home. It was in the governor's budget last year, and ultimately at the end of session, it did not make it. It wasn't actually funded when it came down to it, which is great. Unfortunately, this year it is back in the governor's budget, and it is something we have to fight against again. So the governor's budget has already came out. It came out mid-December. And now we're in the process of the legislative session where legislators are kind of talking behind the scenes about the budget. It is rumored that the capital budget from the Senate will come out around March 15th. Now, that's a really important date for us because leading up to March 15th, we can be putting pressure on legislators to not put this in their capital budget to begin with. And if we can prevent this from getting into that budget in the first place, we are in much better shape for making sure that it doesn't get re-added, right? If it's not there in the first place, things are a lot easier for us. Now, if it does make it into that budget, then we have really until the end of session to push and push and push and ask them to take it out, to not waste $120 million on another institution when that funding can be used in the community to actually meaningfully serve folks, provide them the services they want where they want them.
Daria, can I interrupt just a second?
Absolutely.
The interpreters are asking if you can slow down just a little bit so they can keep up with you, please.
Thank you. Yes, I will slow down. I'm sorry. I get excited about these things and I talk quickly.
I don't know.
Yes, exactly, Mike. So that's essentially what's happening with the nursing home right now. We're in this period where we are waiting to see what comes out of those budgets, but it's not a sit back and relax. It's a stay engaged, keep emailing your legislators, keep telling them that you don't want to see this happen. Now, the second institution I want to talk about is also proposed in the governor's budget this year, and it is the new forensic hospital on the grounds of Western State Hospital, a place that has had horrible decades of trauma for folks with behavioral health or psychiatric disabilities. Remembering that, you know, there are folks in both communities, folks with developmental disabilities who might end up at a forensic hospital as well, right? Now, this institution is going to cost $612 million, right? So the governor's office, excuse me, has proposed pouring another $700 million in new institutions, right? That doesn't even begin to cover the repairs to existing infrastructure that are also in the governor's budget. Huge, huge, huge amount of money we want to spend on this. Again, instead of using that money to create meaningful services in the community. Now, what is a forensic hospital, you might ask? A forensic hospital is built for the sole purpose of sending people into the criminal legal system. So, for example, if someone is arrested for a crime, it could be anything, including like a crime of poverty. It could be potentially sleeping in the wrong place, right? That would be trespassing. They're brought into custody, and someone along the way says, this person might not understand the legal proceedings in front of them. And if that was the situation, they would get a competency evaluation to figure out whether or not they are competent to stand trial and actually participate in their own defense. Do things like communicate with their public defender, their attorney, to actually help create the defense in their case, right? If they are found incompetent, unable to do that, and unfortunately the terminology is competent and incompetent, it is not a good terminology, I would like to add. If they are found to be incompetent, then they are going to be sent to most likely one of the state hospitals where they'll go through what's called a restoration. And restoration is very specifically designed so that individuals are stabilized. They're given maybe a little bit of medication, a little bit of support, but they're sent to civic education classes to learn about the legal system so that they can work with their attorney. They do understand the process at the end of their restoration time.
Oh, so there's a question in the chat for you.
Oh yeah, go for it.
What is a forensic hospital?
Yes. A forensic hospital is a place where you go for restoration that I was just explaining. So it's basic civics class, medication and some treatment. And then once you're deemed restored, you're sent back to jail. So I want to be clear that this is not a place where you get treatment. They do not focus on getting you to a point where you can go back to the community and have help with your behavioral health challenges. It is specifically to send people back to jail to then be prosecuted and potentially serve a sentence as well, right? So to us, this is an expansion of the criminal legal system that we are having so many other great conversations in the legislature and in the disability community about not expanding, right? We don't want to make this system bigger. We want to stop folks from disabilities from going into the system in the first place. And so we're asking the legislature to not spend $612 million on expanding the criminal legal system and instead invest in housing and actual behavioral health treatment in the community so that folks don't go there in the first place. I am going to pause again to see if there are questions because I realize this is a complicated topic. Ivanova, are there any other questions in the chat?
There's one, Diane says, we have a tentative proposal that we are sharing with legislators. We'll post on Advocacy Day page. Do we have a fact sheet or FAQ sheet about the nursing home facility that we can share with legislators?
This is Daria. DRW does have one. I'd be happy to share it. I think I can drop the file into the chat or email it to Diana. I'm sure the ARC and many of the other organizations here have a similar one as well.
You also have the shut them down report. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, thank you, Ivanova. That's right. We recently released another report. I think it's DRW's 4th report on the RHCs, and it's called "Shut Them Down." Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I will drop the link to that in the chat as well. This is one of the reasons I wish Beth was here because she's actually one of the authors of that report and talk about it much better than I can. But essentially the report reiterates the same concerns that we have had for a very long time. It's basically updated information, but more of the same information. So
you betcha.
So it's all about shutting them down. I'll stick that link in the chat.
Good.
Krista also put in the chat, Tony Hall spent 13 years at Western State Hospital. People with IDD are placed at Western State Hospital.
Exactly.
especially people who don't get DDA, they get placed there. So it happens to both DD people and people with mental illness. Is that what you were trying to say, Krista? Behavioral health disabilities.
Looks like Krista put up a thumbs up.
And there's a lot of people with IDD that have an intersection of both, having IDD and behavioral health disabilities. And so both of those really connect together with the dual diagnoses.
May I?
If there's no further questions, then we are going to move on to Diane Stedden, who will go through the bills of interest. Take it away, Diana.
Okay, so we've heard a lot about some of these bills already. David Lord went over some of the bills, and Daria's covered some of it. For people who are wondering about the nursing facility, where is that? It's in what's called the budget bill for the capital budget. We have the House one here, but Daria said the Senate one will be out on March 15th, which is only 5 days away. So we really need to target capital budget committee members and let them know we don't want a big institution at Furcrest, but there is an alternative proposal written out to instead take some of that money and put it in nursing around the state so that people don't have to send their loved one to a nursing facility, and somebody in Spokane doesn't have to send their brother or sister to Seattle and never see them again. So that alternate proposal, I'll post that on the webpage on Advocacy Days with today's information. So yesterday was a
Excuse me,
cutoff.
Diana, could you enlarge the screen a little so folks can?
Okay, hold on a second. Let me. Does that work better?
Diane, you also might want to kill the spotlight, and then that way you should be able to enlarge it.
They posted in chat. It looks good.
Okay.
Also too, Diana, put closed institutions too. Thank you.
Yep, that's right, Mike. So yesterday was a cutoff. So as we go through the legislative session, they come up with dates. And so they say by this date, bills have to be all the way through where they started from, what we call their house of origin. So if a bill started in the Senate and it went through its policy committee and its budget committee and whatever else it needed to do, it had to get passed on the Senate floor by yesterday. So we had two bills that did not make it past that cutoff point. So on our bills of interest, you will see them with a little tombstone over on the right-hand side. And so House Bill 1071 that would make it a higher sentence if somebody committed a crime based on a person having a disability of some kind, they would have got a worse sentence for it. But that did not pass, so it still means that it could come back next year, but for this year, it will not pass. So there are bills a lot of bills in the civil rights and legal area. One of them that self-advocates have really been watching is House Bill 1227. And the bill is not specifically for people with developmental disabilities, but it does cover an issue that those families have been dealing with. So parents who have a developmental disability, oftentimes in the past, when they go into, they have a, they're pregnant and going to have their baby, they go into the hospital, have the baby, and a doctor or nurse says, they got a disability. I don't think they can take care of this child. And they call CPS and take the child away. And no reason other than the fact that the parent has a disability or developmental disability. So this bill will make it so it will protect those parents. So somebody can't just go in and say, I think the child won't be taken care of or will be abused. They have to have a reason. There has to be some kind of proof of that. So that's a bill, House Bill 1227, that we're really watching. All of these bills on here have been assigned to a committee now in the other house. So if it started in the Senate, it's now going to start all over again through the process in the House. And then eventually we'll get to the cutoff date for that. And we'll see which bills get passed and which ones may die and have to wait till next year to try again. And we're kind of behind on time here. So I'll ask if there's any specific questions people have before we move on to Alex, who will talk a little bit about how you can sign up for hearings. Is there any questions right now?
Just to let you know regarding the sub-minimum wage, it has passed and there's a hearing Friday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, that is true. The last one I have listed here is 5284. And Alex is going to talk about how you can sign up for that one.
And also there's one other one that's 5268. That's the one that has to do with transforming. And a lot of us people are, especially myself, it's under other because of the fact that it, the thing it does address quite a bit is about caseload forecasting and other stuff, but there's still things about in there about sticking people in institutions when we're trying to get people out.
Okay, so let's go to Alex. Alex, are you ready to share?
After attending this briefing, you have many options to advocate to your legislators. You can schedule a Zoom with your legislators, testify at a hearing, email your legislators about bills that are important to them, watch each advocacy day afterwards on our website, email to get virtual appointments with your legislators. You can watch hearings on TVW. You can sign in to testify at future hearings. You can sign in pro, con, or other, or submit written testimony on a bill. And be sure to join us for future advocacy days. We need to make sure you are satisfied with Advocacy Day. Be sure to fill out our feedback form. Let's walk through it together. Advocacy Day is a project of the ARC of Washington State and funded by the Developmental Disabilities Council. Your feedback helps us to continue improving and helping your voice to be heard. Start by putting in your email address. Next, you select the Advocacy Day you are giving input for. Today is March 10th, Rights and Protections Day. Then you respond if this is your first Advocacy Day or not. Next, you pick the smileys that answer how you feel about the virtual Advocacy Day. Then you submit the form. Just as easy as that. Your input helps Diana and the ARC to know what you like, what you don't like, what is helpful, what is not helpful. You can learn all about these and more ideas to get involved on our website at www.arcwa.org and click on Advocacy Days. You can also contact us at sale@arcwa.org or diana@arcwa.org if you need help. Are there any questions? Next, I want to take you through the steps of signing in Pro for ESSB 5284. First, type into your browser leg.wa.gov. After the legislative homepage loads, look for Let Your Voice Be Heard, then click on Participating in the Process. Then under Participating in a Committee Hearing, click on Committee Sign-In, Remote Testimony. Then, because this bill is being heard in the House Labor and Workplace Standards Committee, click on House. Select the committee drop-down for Labor and Workplace Standards Committee. Then click on the meetings drop-down and select March 12, 21, 8 a.m. Then select the SSB 5284 sub-minimum wage disabilities. Then select type of testimony, select I would like my position noted for the record. Then select position from the drop-down. Next fill out your first name, last name, email address, organization, if you want it listed, your address, city, state, zip code and phone number. Then you have to admit that you are not a robot by clicking in the box. Lastly, select submit your registration. Advocates can also sign in Pro for the second SHB 1227 hearing on Friday in the Senate. The process is the same except at committee sign-in, remote testimony, you will select Senate. Then you will select Human Services, Reentry and Rehabilitation. Then from the meetings drop-down you will select March 12th, 10:30 a.m. and complete the process as you did for 5284. I hope this helps you in your advocacy. Please reach out if you need help in the process. You can reach us at alex@arcwa.org.
Thank you, Alex. Also, in the chat, Sean Latham posted about a petition that the Set Them Down Coalition has created. If anyone is interested in looking at that, it is in the chat under change.org. And we are trying to get up to 500 signatures. So if you're passionate about shutting down institutions, I recommend you look at that. And also, Doria just posted a guide to signing up for hearings. And there's actually a couple of hearings that are coming up this Friday at 8 o'clock. There's the some minimum wage hearing. And then at the 10:30 is the hearing about the bill about the parenting rights. And I will be testifying at both of them. And if you want to watch those hearings, all you need to go is to TVW. They have them archived, or you can watch them live at the time that they start, at the time that I just said, 8 o'clock or 10:30.
Ivanova?
Yes?
I'm going to share my screen just for a minute again to show people the TVW website.
Yeah,
so this is the website, and if you want to watch one of the hearings, you would click up in the right-hand corner that says schedule. And it will show you what is live, what committees are being watched live right now, and which ones are up next. So if you wanted to watch early learning and K-12 education right now, you would go over and click on video, and it would give you the video and audio for that hearing.
With the committee, but I would like to mention that the basic skills.
All right, thank you, Diana, for that information. That's very important. So yeah, if you want to watch the hearings, also the floor action, you can also watch the floor action on TVW, And that's a lot of fun when you're waiting for your bill to get on the floor. You know it's gonna be there. You get to watch it get voted on by all the legislators. So that's a fun thing to do as well. And all you can do, it's actually better to download the app if you want to watch the stuff on your phone. You should download the app to do that because the video quality is a lot better in the app than if you just try to use your web browser. That's just a little personal tip that I learned. And all right, and it's 5284 and 1227. Yeah, so those are the two bills that will be heard on Friday. So, and that concludes our Advocacy Day. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today. And if you want to stick around and chat and socialize, you're more than welcome to. We'll keep this open till noon to do that. And so I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you have not registered to testify for any of these bills on Friday, I would encourage you to register today if you want a spot to testify, because it fills up, and if you're last in line on that, if you sign up too late, they may not let you testify. So I always encourage people to register as early as possible if you want to register. And make sure to please fill out the evaluations, online evaluation form that Alex so gracefully told us about today. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your Advocacy Day.